caregivers. It is me, Susie Pettit, and I am so glad that you are here today. If you have ever felt like you are holding up the sky for everyone else, maybe your aging parents, your kids, your job, your relationships, the economy, and you're just hoping maybe no one notices, or maybe you're hoping that everybody notices, like someone suddenly, like, it's like, hey, how is it going for you, Susie, sweetheart, that sort of stuff. This episode is for you. Maybe you've heard of the sandwich generation. There's a lot of this going on. And today I am so excited because I'm talking to Jenny Lytle. She is a former hospice nurse with over 30 years of experience walking people through the end of life. And now she helps caregivers, people just like you and me, stop running on empty and start reclaiming their energy without the guilt. I just wanted to make sure, because she is still a nurse. So when I just said she's a former nurse, like, take that back. She's still practicing. She's still at it. She's still helping people every single day. So thank you, Jenny, for not only doing that and also coming on the show. This conversation is it's honest and healing. We talk about my recent experience in the hospital and how my husband as a caregiver navigated some of that. We talk about how to take care of other people without losing yourself in the process, why self-care is not selfish. It is not, even if it feels like it is sometimes, warriors, it is not, and how to stop letting go or start letting go of the pressure to do it all. I'm so grateful that Jenny chose to take some time with us today to help us, and I can't wait for you to listen in. This is a really helpful episode. And welcome to the Love Your Life show, Jenny. I am so excited that you are here. We talked a little bit just now before getting on camera about how much I wanted you to come on the show. And I wanted to just share personally with the listeners and you, one of my big intents to coming on is that I had my own health scare just a couple months ago where I ended up in the hospital. I guess it was over the last 6 months. I've been in the hospital twice and have had, been ill myself and needed a lot of care from my husband. And it was, sort of one of my first times noticing the I don't know what the word is, drama or the situation where, like, from my own, I needed care and felt horrendous, and also had a husband who was super concerned about me and wanted to care for me, and yet like needed to have his own boundaries to still be able to take care of his basic human needs and mental health, or else he would have caved too. And we were only in that situation for a short period of time. So I was grateful that that situation passed relatively quickly. And yet once I saw that dynamic, I'm like, oh, wow, like I need to have Jenny on the show, because I see it everywhere. So, we had initially been back and forth talking about how to help people in the sandwich generation with their aging parents, with, still caring for young kids, sometimes in the house, sometimes they're young kids who are having all sorts of, their own drama. They're out of the house, but they're still asking for mom or dad for help. And then I see this where I am just like, oh yeah, no, this isn't just happening for, moms age 48. This is happening if you have a neurotypical kid, or if your partner has or sibling or friend has a long, chronic pain and that sort of stuff. So I wanted to come on and have you here. And can you just help listeners know a little bit about, why Susie wants Jenny to come on the show, why you're a good person to talk to about this? How does your experience with your mom and your life lead you to being so helpful with people in this area?
Awesome. Well, sure. Thank you. First of all, so thank you so much, Susie, for allowing me to come on here and share with your audience. And I'm glad that things are going much better with you than they were. And yes, it's something that we don't talk about enough in all of the struggles that caregivers go through, and the difficulty in balancing all of those different roles and expectations. And so for me, I've been a nurse for 30 years now, which still seems unbelievable, but time flies.
How does that happen when you're only 28?
I
So
know.
cool.
That's what I say all the time. I'm like, how are my kids like older than I am now?
So weird.
Yes, but I really became more passionate about stress relief and helping caregivers see the need for self-care when I myself went through some burnout, and that was a long process to come out of that. And then my mom, who was also a nurse and a caregiver for everybody but herself.
Mm,
She had chronic illnesses, but she ended up passing away suddenly of a ruptured brain aneurysm. And
mm,
I believe that a lot of that was due to a lack of self-care.
mm,
And so those two things really sparked a deep passion in me for helping others in this way, because as caregivers, whether it be other nurses, we're talking professionally, or people in their own lives,
mhm,
parents and people who, like you said, are in that sandwich generation where we're trying to take care of everybody. It can be a challenge to fit ourselves into that,
mhm,
and especially when we feel like, well, it's selfish to do that. I've got all these other things to do.
mhm,
And so that's my stance, is that self-care isn't selfish. And as a matter of
mhm,
fact, it's the only way that we can continue to care for others long term and live our best lives. And so, I love what you're doing with
mhm.
Love Your Life. And yeah, because it's important to not just go through all of the shoulds, all of the things that we feel like we need to be doing, but really find time to live and love and enjoy our lives.
Yeah, which is incredibly difficult. It's incredibly difficult, I think, if we have, totally healthy parents and no one around us has chronic illness. Our society is set, a patriarchal society is that like women are here to serve others. So
Hmm.
even if nothing else is going on, the listener listening, like I want them to listen. Like if they don't have someone chronically ill in their life, or they don't have a parent who's needing their support right now, I want them to listen too and see where this shows up in their life, because we are programmed to put our needs last, and that is really societally acceptable.
Hmm.
And then add in these other things that are going on, so we've spent what, 30, 40 years thinking of everyone else's needs, everyone else before us. And then we have something happen in our lives where we are caring for more people, or, again, we're sort of putting our life on hold to care for everyone else. Like that, I wrote down, you said, like, caregivers care for everyone, but your mother was a caregiver and cared for everyone but herself.
Hmm.
I think that'll ring true for many people. And so how do you get, like, I guess let's just start there, like a little more. I think we need a little more of a, like, okay, but why? Why is self-care important? Why do I need to bring myself into the equation? Like, why don't I just keep doing what society tells me I should do to be the good girl, and to continue on, that feels comfortable to me, just
Hmm.
sacrificing myself at the
Right.
expense. It's like, what do they say? Like setting yourself on fire to keep everyone else warm. Like, why don't
Yes.
I just keep doing that, Jenny? It seems to be working.
Right. Well, and sometimes it does seem to be working.
Mhm,
And I think that it can for a short period of time.
mhm,
But, when we get in those patterns, and again, I agree, it's something that we've been raised to believe. I mean, that's
mhm,
something that's been passed down from generation to generation, of that's what women do. And really there's a lot of men who are kind of in that circumstance
mhm,
now too, where you really put everyone else's needs above yourself.
mhm,
And I'm not suggesting that people be selfish and ignore the needs of people around them,
mhm,
but it's that opposite thing where you have to take care of yourself in order to be able to take care of others.
mhm,
It's the whole oxygen mask thing. I just got home from Texas today, and um, because of some airline issues, and
mhm.
we were on 5 flights
Oh, goodness.
total. So I got to see the oxygen mask demonstration a lot of times. And whenever I do, I just always think, how it's so counterintuitive, when they tell you, if something happens, if you're with small children or someone elderly, you need to put your own oxygen mask on first. And we think, well, of course I've got to help these other people because they can't help themselves. But, if we don't have that oxygen mask on, literally or figuratively,
Mhm,
then we're not going to be in a position to be able to care for them. So,
mhm. And that is so
we,
important, because I do think, back to, like, that it works, but it only works for a certain amount of time. And I find most of us, that's a lot of what our like midlife crises are about, that we're just like,
Hmm.
wait a frigging minute, what kind of life am I living? Like I'm living, you know, other people's rule books. And we talk about that a lot in the Love Your Life School. And I guess um, I just want people here to start, it's not looking at this self-care as selfish. What you're saying is it's not like, we go from taking care of their needs exclusively and ignoring ours, which is where a lot of us have been and were raised, to only taking care of our needs and not caring for theirs at all. Like, well, then screw you, like you're on your own. I always say it's just like a sort of a reckoning of the balance. And it's like, let's
Hmm.
let's consider both of our needs,
Right.
and maybe some compromises need to be met, but or need to be made, but like it is a more equalizing, at least bringing your needs to the table is
Hmm.
where so what do you see are some of the signs of someone who maybe isn't taking care of themselves? And also that the self-care might be needed, but and also what did you see in your mom? Because that was
Hmm.
quite striking to me that you thought, her own lack of self-care is partially why she died, if not
Hmm. Hmm.
100%.
Yes. So, one of the things that I see, first of all, is feeling like I don't have time to take care of myself, and that can be very basic things
Mhm.
like I don't have time to sleep. I don't have time to, when you don't have time to sleep, like something isn't going well.
Yeah,
And,
just like my
especially
heart's
when you're
hurting.
talking, right. I mean, sleep is so
Mhm.
fundamental to everything. I mean, that's when our body repairs. That's, like from a cellular level, that's when everything gets better. And it just gives our minds time to heal and repair too. And when we ignore something as basic as sleep, then there can be, catastrophic
Mhm.
issues down the line, in addition to just the ones, that we feel then where we're thinking less. There's studies that show that, lack of sleep is like driving drunk. And
Mhm.
but then we have people who are making, important decisions while they're in those sleep deprived states because they feel like they don't have time for that.
Well, also,
And
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I also had
no.
another study that showed that like part of why we're seeing so much Alzheimer's and dementia in women is because of the lack of sleep. Like when they study
Hmm.
women's brains, it's back from the lack of sleep back when they, were younger. So it
Hmm.
it does. Like maybe it impacts us in that moment. We're like, no, I can power through with my fancy coffee, but
Right.
it is, yes. So lack of not having time to sleep, not having time to pee, not having time to eat. Like
Yes.
these are basic human needs.
Right.
If we are caring for someone and we're like, no, I don't have care time to feed you, like we would see that that's a little odd. But I know the person listening has said those things to herself. I've said
Right. Oh,
like,
I have too. I mean,
mm-hmm,
I'm a nurse, and that's one of the things, a
mm,
lot of nurses are like, oh, I've worked a 12-hour shift and, didn't have time to pee. Well,
right.
the older you get, the more challenging that is.
Yes. Well, and you're in the
But
health profession. I mean, that's always fascinating to
exactly.
me. It's like, what are you talking about? You know, that's not healthy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
that is one thing. I am well hydrated, which
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately does mean that I'm going to the bathroom a lot. But I know that I feel better that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to prioritize sleep as well because again, I know I'm somebody that needs a pretty good amount of sleep, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I needed less sleep, but I don't. And I work on call. I mean, I work
Wow.
nights sometimes, so that my sleep is interrupted. And
Mm-hmm.
so I get the challenges with that. Back to what you were asking about my mom.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So with her, sleep was a big one. She
Mm-hmm.
always felt like oh, well, I don't have time to sleep. I've got all these things to do. And this was as she had always been that way to a certain degree because she was a single mom. And when I was younger, she had worked a couple of jobs when I was
Mm.
growing up and then was a convenience store manager for
Oh, wow.
years. And so she worked very long shifts with that, covering everybody else. And then we went to nursing school together when I got out of high school. And so then she was
Mm.
working, some nursing shifts and different shifts the way that went. And then she ended up working at a factory before she went on disability. But
Wow.
throughout all of that, her sleep was messed up. Her diet was horrible. smoked like a freight train.
Uh,
There were
yeah.
so many things, and but she would have done anything for anybody else.
Mm,
And that was what was so frustrating, and really her mental health deteriorated too. And I
mm,
think that, part of that, I mean, she had multiple sclerosis, which does affect, which can affect, the brain and,
hmm
and thought processes and stuff like that. But I really believe that so much of it was just the fact that she just didn't take care of herself in any way. Because she would stay up all night. And this is, when she wasn't working, but she was, maybe trying to connect different people. She was very involved with like free Facebook groups, and she'd see,
mm.
that somebody had a need for something, and especially if it
Yeah,
was kids
still
or
like
something
what else do
involved.
other people
Yes.
need? Yeah.
Right. And so then she'd try to, connect them with all these other people. And um she was so caring and so loving. And, you know, I want to be that part of her, but she definitely neglected herself.
hmm
And that part, it makes me sad. And it does make me a little bit angry, because I
Mm,
feel like, if you would have taken better care of yourself, you might have still been here.
yeah.
Or at least been here longer. She's been gone almost 7 years now.
Mm.
But
Well, I just
it
can I pause you there because that's
yeah,
super important for people to hear, I think. And your situation, and I'm sorry, and that it is
thank you.
hard to think that, like, oh my gosh, like if you had cared for yourself
Hmm.
differently, mom, you might have had many more years here. And
Hmm.
that is sad and tinged with that angry. And I guess some of that also for us as we're spinning around, taking care of everyone else's needs and everyone else's concerns, to just notice, like sometimes the people may not be asking us for these things at the level that we're doing them. And what is the consequence for us is we usually feel resentful. We feel pissy. We feel like, oh my God, no one understands everything I do. And
Hmm.
then how does that show up on the other person? I remember this happening with me that I said something to, one of my sons, well, don't you understand, like, what I went to get you these socks? And he's just like, I didn't freaking ask for the socks, mom. Like, what are you even doing? Like
Yes.
what are you talking about? And I would really rather not have you in this mood and, slamming my snack down and be sockless than it's like, and so some of that awareness of like just us sort of snapping ourselves out of this bubble, thinking that what we're doing and spinning and doing for everyone else is helpful for us or them, because it's not. It really is not. Um, and so, yeah, so this self-care, I really want listeners to start to, it's bigger than a podcast conversation. Podcasts are a great place to sort of, when you hear something and you're like, oh, where am I feeling maybe a little guilt when I take care of myself? I don't
Hmm.
have anyone yet that I'm taking care of other than maybe kids or, I mean, women are always going to feel like they're taking care of someone, but maybe you
Right.
have an aging parent or a chronically ill, spouse or sibling or something. Um, but where are you feeling guilty and where are you doing this? Like that you don't have time for yourself. You don't have time for a workout. You don't have time to investigate what you might want to be doing with your life. Where are you living someone else's lives instead of your own? Yes, let's start, just being brave enough to dig in there. I
Hmm.
want to talk to the person who is caring for someone, though, who does have someone in front of them, whether, it is the aging parent or the chronically ill spouse or sibling. How do you help them with the guilt or that feeling, setting the boundaries, taking care of someone else without losing themselves? How do you
Right. Well, and something when you were saying that, I thought, I don't normally say this way, but I think it's important too, as someone who is trying to figure out how to care for themselves, to not add in guilt over doing that wrong too, or not doing that enough. Because,
Mm,
I think it's so easy to feel like we're not doing enough in whatever it is that we're doing,
everything?
whether it's at home, at work, whatever it is, it's never quite enough.
hmm
And so with whether it's with caring for the person or people that you're caring for, or caring for yourself, a little bit can go a long way.
Mm,
It's figuring out what it is that you really need most. And it may
Mm,
be, maybe you're somebody who, okay, you have to do a little bit of caregiving, which still can feel like a whole lot. I'm not minimizing that, but
mhm,
maybe you're needing to, help out with someone maybe a couple times a week or, an hour or so a day. Or maybe it's something where, I mean, that's your full-time job. And maybe in addition to your
mhm,
regular, full-time job. And so there may be just, you feel like there really isn't any time
mm,
for you. I, then
mhm,
it's even more important to just figure out those little bitty things that you can do.
mm,
Sleep, of course, is
mhm,
one of them. If there's ways that you can maybe get some help or trade off with somebody or, put together a schedule of other
mm,
family members that potentially can help with that, where you can get some uninterrupted sleep.
mm,
Um, Asking for help, and I know that some people don't have. I mean, they're like
mhm.
legitimately
Right.
is not anybody. So I'm not saying that, oh, it's just easy, just ask somebody for help.
Mhm.
Paid caregivers, that adds up quickly.
Right.
So,
Right.
that's something definitely not that everybody can afford. But if you're somebody who just doesn't want to bother other people,
Yeah.
then maybe just reaching out, because sometimes people are willing to help. They just don't know how to.
Well, and even that, like that thought, like, no, there's no one that can help me. I would have listeners, they're familiar with the thought model. I would have them push back on that thought and just be like, well, what if there was? Because there are, what if there's a university near you and they have kids that are like, hey, we want volunteer hours for
Hmm.
home, maybe you don't have the finances or you don't have, I think we always want to push back on those thoughts that are making us feel horrendous.
Hmm.
And if we still are like, no, I've gone through all the thinking, Susie, and I am the one, what I'm hearing from you, and I just want to emphasize this with the listeners, are two things. One, to really have for the caregiver to decide for themselves what is enough, to have it come back to them, not have it be the other person that's deciding what's enough, but for them to decide what's enough. And then also the second thing is like what that person needs most. And I,
Hmm.
I guess I want to use my personal example here because this is what my husband did, and it was really helpful because I was in the hospital for an extended period of time. I didn't like the hospital food. And so one of the things he was doing was so nicely bringing me lettuce so that I could order my like protein. I mean, the Warriors know I get like my protein, my healthy oil, and my produce. And so he was bringing in the fresh produce every day. And he had drawn this line where he's like, as long as my wife has her fresh produce, like I've got her, and there were, other things too. There was coffee or, whatever, but again, just time with him. But he just sort of was like, okay, this is my enough. And some
Hmm.
days I'm going to stay there for longer periods of time because that works for me and my mental capacity to be, in this room with all this other stuff going on. And other times that's too much for me. And I'm speaking from my husband here. And I'm going to,
Hmm.
I've done my enough. And what do I need? Okay, I'm going to go home and take care of my needs. And that worked really well for us. Um, and I can't, I guess what I want to just sort of get into any caregivers who are listening head is that I, as the patient, even though I am a life coach and this is just 6 months, 2 months ago, whatever, I'm very aware of not being codependent. I would have taken everything he had to give. I would have sucked in every minute of his time and, why are you not here when I'm like in the middle of the night when they're waking me up to take my blood pressure? Like I would have been like, sure, just sit there, I mean, hopefully something would have come in, but I was very much like spinning in my own thing. So I
Hmm.
needed, it was very helpful for me and our relationship, for him to have that line and to
Hmm.
say, like, yeah, okay, and here's your lettuce, and now I'm going home for the night. And that was really helpful. So sort of that like not getting swayed. I'm sort of picturing like a raging river, and for the caregiver to not just get like jump in that raging river and have that take you, but more to be standing on the side and knowing and standing in their power of what they need. I need my sleep. I need this. And then acting on that and having that be, because then it like when you decide it for yourself, then the guilt isn't as severe, I have found.
Absolutely. And there's not as much resentment either way. When you're able to know, okay, I'm doing what I need to do to take care of me, and I'm doing what I can to take care of you too,
Mm-hmm.
then that helps to not have that, just those feelings of frustration and helplessness, and that lead to resentment when you just feel like, okay, I can't do it all. And that's right. I mean, we can't do it all.
We
We
can't do it
can.
all. And I would be I should have him come in. I'd be interested to know if he felt resentful. Because I think the way he set it up, I'm hoping that he didn't. I for
Hmm.
sure didn't. And I guess this is important to speak to too, is that there were moments when I did feel maybe disappointed that he wasn't there.
Hmm.
But again, that's fine. Am I like an emotional adult enough that I'm like, no, it makes sense. I'm disappointed. This is someone that I love. I'm going through a tough time. It would be nice if I had someone sort of stuck to my side like gumbo, because this is hard to bear. And did I use that as a weapon in the relationship? No. And that's more of a sign of this relationship. So I guess for people when they're like, but what if my mom's lonely, or what if my mom's disappointed, or what if my so and so, it's like those are normal human emotions that emotionally mature adults can feel. And if they're not emotionally mature, that's okay, but it's not your fault, again, that we don't want
Right.
to override those boundaries and just keep showing up just because Susie might be disappointed. Like,
Hmm.
okay,
Right.
Susie has a
And those
physical
are definitely
system.
patterns that it's
Mm-hmm.
easy for, a lot of people are just, they have those patterns from childhood,
For sure.
especially when it comes to parents who, do kind of heap on the guilt when you're not there all the time. But just knowing that if that's your relationship dynamic, if it's always been that way, then it may always be that way.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean that you have to keep trying to, if you keep trying to change something that you've never been able to change before, the only thing that you really can control in that situation is your reaction to that and those
Mm-hmm.
boundaries that you set. And just be very clear and loving that, hey, this is, I want to be here for you. I'm here to help you with these things and be here during these times, but I've got other obligations and other things that I need to take care of for myself.
Mm.
And, that doesn't mean that people are always going to be happy with those boundaries. A
Mm-mm.
lot of times people aren't, especially in the very
We're not
beginning.
responsible for their
But
feelings. Yeah.
right, right. But
Mm.
but being able to do that is a way that we can continue to be able to help and serve in some capacity.
Hmm. So, what would you say to the listener that's like, oh my gosh, yes, this is me. Like, I'm so resentful. I'm so burnt out. I'm exhausted. Or maybe that's too strong for them because sometimes people are always like, no, I'm good. This is it,
Right. I'm
like,
fine. I'm
I'm
fine.
fine. I'm fine.
Just busy.
Like, yeah, I have no life. Like, I have
Hmm.
no, like, there's no part of my 24 hours where I am doing, thinking about my future, my like caring for myself. And they're feeling overwhelmed. How would you encourage them to get started in this? Like they're feeling like the dynamic they have set up with the caregiving is so broken that they're
Hmm.
like, come on, Jenny. Like,
Right, right.
yeah.
So a couple of things. I always encourage people to, especially people who are, resistant or feeling like I don't know if I can fit this in. Start with breathing. It's so
Mhm.
basic, but oh my gosh, it's so
Mhm.
powerful when you don't think, well, I know that.
Mhm.
We can get into that I know that mentality as well. And I do the same thing,
Me too.
well, I've heard that or I know that, but it's like, but am I doing it? Because,
Hmm.
knowing something and doing something are two very different things. And so, practicing, and maybe it's when you're in the bathroom. If you're
Mm.
somebody that's like you're living with your person that you're caring for, that may be your only time that you feel
Hmm.
like, okay, I almost have these couple minutes to myself. And so while you're in
Mm.
there, slow down, take a couple of slow, deep breaths and just
Mm.
really let yourself relax a little bit.
Mm. Oh, I'm like, say
And
something nice to yourself. Be like, look at me. I'm
yes.
like really caring for this other human in a nice way. Like,
Right. And
I like that.
feeling those things that
Hmm.
you're, feeling that gratitude
Mm.
for whatever good is going on in your life, for being able to show up for someone, finding those little things, because it's so easy, especially when you're doing a very thankless, nonstop job,
Hmm.
to focus on all of the ways that either aren't going well or that you feel like you're failing, and instead just really thinking about those little things, those
Mm.
little happy moments that you've had, or those times when you're like, oh, you know what? I feel really good good about this thing.
Hmm.
And that's something, I mean, it can really change your energy and change the
Hmm.
way that you show up for yourself and for other people, for sure.
Yeah, and that reminder to self of like, why am I doing this? I think that's sometimes that's where resentment comes from, or when burnout comes from, when we just feel like we have to, and
Hmm.
we actually don't. Like we don't have to. I remember even as a young mom, I was in a coaching session and I was like, I have to do this. I have to. And she's like, you don't have to. I was like, yes, I do. She's like, no, you literally could like give your kids away. She's like, this is, and I was like, oh, and it just sort of shifted it for me to be like, I'm choosing this and yay me because I am, doing the hard stuff. And I guess I like thinking of that bathroom moment and just realigning with values. Why are whoever is listening, why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you caring for your kids in the way that you're caring for your kids? Why are you caring for your aging parent in the way you're
Hmm.
caring for your aging parent? And if your brain is like, because my brother won't, or because someone else won't, will stop. Like, let's get out a pen and a paper and be like, you're like, let's just push back against that. And because we
Hmm.
want them to be more in that empowered place instead of the victim, like I have to do this because no one else
Right.
will. Or, but getting, so it does two things to get you more in that empowered place of like, I'm choosing to do this. I'm the type of person who my mother's health matters to me and I am having her, fill in the blank, or that this is matters to me. Gets back in that. It also gets you out of that resentment, and you can get more into like, well, what do I want and why am I doing this? Um,
Hmm.
and bringing a little more joy to what you're doing because it is freaking hard.
Absolutely. It
Hmm.
absolutely is. And figuring out those things that, okay, if I feel like I have limited time or limited will right now to maybe take care of myself a little bit, how can you start small? And I think part of that is just thinking about what is it that really fills me up,
Hmm.
because that's very different for both of us. And my approach in working with clients is to really personalize that, personalize
Hmm.
your self-care. Don't just accept, oh, well, she goes and gets her nails done, or, it's spa days and
Right.
bubble baths, and
Yeah, nails do nothing
that's
for
just
me.
going to fit
Yeah.
in for everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And, and really, those are things that we enjoy. And for
Hmm.
some people, it really does fill them up. But
Hmm.
for
Yeah.
others, it may just be, okay, that's just something else that I feel like I'm supposed to do.
Right.
But maybe, spending time in nature, doing some grounding exercises, doing some breathing, going for a walk, or going to an exercise class where you're just stepping outside of
Hmm.
something, where you're talking with other people, where you're somebody other than a caregiver,
Right.
for those few moments, just having that time to yourself, and to really pour back into you and do the things that make a difference, and
Yeah.
spending time with people that make you feel better. I mean, having that spark team is so important,
Mm.
because there's plenty of energy vampires out there too, where,
Right.
you're just with them and you're like, ugh.
Yeah. Well,
But
yeah, what the
being with
control
people
you
that,
do have. Yes.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Um, well, and I know what I was going to say when I was encouraging people to like return to their values and that this is a choice they're making, that I'm the type of woman who is caring for this person. It also helps if you say to said person, hey, I'm going outside, some of the things that you just said, hey, I'm going out for a 10-minute walk, or hey, I'm going out to get a breath of fresh air.
mm-hmm,
And they push back, what? Wait, what about me? Like, what, they're sort of in that place. I like clients to be more in that, like, no, it's okay for me to, like, I'm the type of woman who's taking care of you, and I still get to go outside and take a break. Like, I still get to go stand outside.
mm-hmm.
What do you, so say someone is saying like, well, wait, what about me? What am I going to do? I can't, nice for you. You can go outside. I can't go outside. What do you say to that woman when she's feeling guilty and selfish,
Mm-hmm.
frankly?
Yeah, and that is something that
Well, that's
that's
happening.
not
I'm
easy,
sure.
especially, right, especially when we feel, when we're feeling that guilt. In the beginning, it's even harder than,
Hmm.
it may never be easy. I mean, to be honest, with some of us, with our personalities, with our relationship dynamics, it may never be easy to do that. But being able to just say, hey, mom, if we're talking about mom here, mom, look, I love you, but I just need to step away for a
Hmm.
few, and that's going to help me to be able to be with you and enjoy our time together more.
Hmm.
And putting it as this is just something I need, not necessarily I need to get away from you, even though it
Hmm.
may totally be I need to get away from
Oh
you
yeah,
for a
right.
few, but this is something that I need to do for me, but I'll be back in whenever, whether that's
Hmm.
in 10 minutes or tomorrow or whatever that case may be,
Hmm.
depending on your situation. But it does generally get a little bit easier with time and once you continue to show up for yourself in that
Hmm.
way.
Yeah, well, that's why I love, what you're doing out there to support this, and also groups like I have the Love Your Life School where you need someone around you. If this has been a long-standing pattern, and it is a long-standing pattern in our society to put all your needs aside and take care of others, when you say to whoever you're caring for the first time, like, hey, I'm going to go outside and take a breath, that's going to feel really traumatic to your system. And if the person pushes back and is like, well, wait, what about me? Like, I can't, we need a group or a community that's like, you're not doing anything wrong. It's okay. You go out there, it's going to feel uncomfortable. You know what I hear you saying, Jenny, is that like the first time it's going to feel uncomfortable, second time it's going to feel uncomfortable, the third time it's going to feel a little less uncomfortable.
Hmm.
I also know the first time you say it, that person's going to be like, what are you talking about? Like that, you've never done this before. Second time, they're going to be like, oh, you're doing that annoying thing again. Third time, they're like, okay, fine, freaking go. Like, how long are you going to be gone for? Can you pick me up a newspaper while
Hmm.
like,
Right,
it gets a
right.
little easier there. I think it's also important to say that, so we want people around us who are supporting this idea that self-care isn't selfish,
Hmm.
that is mandatory. And then we also want our expectations set to a point where this person is is not going to, we don't want them to have to agree with us. So if we do have these long-standing, certainly if we're caring for a parent, where our dynamic since we've been born has been to, put our needs, that's what's been programmed into us. Then when we speak up to them that we're like, hey, suddenly I'm going to go outside and take a breath, no matter how much explaining we do to them, hey, mom, I love you so much. And you mean so much. And you know what? I was listening to this podcast the other day and they're talking, like, stop it. Just the shorter, the better.
Hmm.
And just sort of a broken record. It's like, I'm going out, I need a breath of fresh air. I'm going outside. Mom comes back with something like, what are you, and you're just like, I know, mom, I'm going outside. I'll be back in 3. What? Okay, I'm going. And we don't
Yeah.
get caught in that trying to explain ourselves, getting defensive. Well, I've been here all day and or like that that's where we know we've sort of gone back into that caving place, but caving in terms of like immaturity. We're back into that
Hmm.
child place,
Right.
really. We're not showing up as the adult. The adult is like, no, I have needs, you have needs. I'm meeting your needs to the best of my ability, and now I'm going to go meet my needs. Thank you.
Right.
And I
And
understand you're not so
yes,
happy
and
about it.
I love that. And
Yeah.
I remember when you said that, my husband used to do that sometimes with the kids when they
Mm,
were younger, and they would get in that cycle. And it's like, you know what? Look, there when the kids were young and they were, like being kind of argumentative to understand,
mm.
then that's
Yeah,
very
yeah,
different. I'm
yeah.
like, look, he has no interest in understanding what you're saying. He's just wanting to argue.
Right.
He's
This
wanting
is
to
him
keep it
like
going.
trying to differentiate. Right,
Right,
exactly.
right. And really most of the time it was he's trying to stay up.
Yeah,
It would be late at night.
yeah, exactly. He
It's
just
like
wants you to
he
argue. So
understands. Yeah, he understands the issue, but you're just playing right into that because my husband loves to over-explain
Mhm.
everything. And so, he would be doing that and it would just be this going back and forth. And I'm like, do you not see
Right.
this? Like,
Stop it.
it's not going to change. It's
So
and
fun.
yes, especially with, our adult relationships, parenting relationships, it can definitely be that way where that's just always been the dynamic. There's, the guilt tripping that goes along with all of that. And yes, just, keeping it short and sweet and
Short
doing
and
what you need to
sweet,
do.
and yeah, and being the
Yeah.
adult there, because
Hmm.
we're looking for the buy-in so we don't feel guilty. Because if we're
Right.
like, mom, I'm going out for a breath of fresh air, and they're like, great idea, we're like,
Hmm.
dude, like
Right.
we would have been doing
Yeah.
that years ago.
Thanks.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. But if it's that like, the pushback, like I think back to just several, I mean, this happens with the most kind-hearted people. And I'm like, I consider myself that when my husband's like, hey, I'm going home now for the night, and it's 2 p.m. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like that must have been really hard for him. And he still did it. And I'm really proud of him for doing it.
Right.
And he didn't sit there and over explain and defend. And he's just like, yeah, sweetheart, like here's a hug and let's go. And I'm like, right.
Hmm.
And actually him not going into that defensive over explaining helped me to be like, right, like this is normal. Like it's not his
Right.
job to stay here and be
Hmm.
my little like Cabbage Patch kid while I'm getting through this thing. So I again, it's like brief. Don't expect the buy-in. Surround yourself with people who support you and are saying, no, like your needs matter. We don't want to surround
Hmm.
ourselves with people that are like, you did what?
Right.
Okay, we
Right.
want the your needs matter because we're trying to break this pattern of people putting
Yes.
themselves last, not going for their oxygen at all. Yes.
Hmm. And Susie, I am curious, when he did that, did you, like you said, you were there was a part of you that maybe was a little bit disappointed, but do you feel like that gave you more of an opportunity to kind of sit there and figure things out for yourself a little bit too, like how you were feeling about everything that was going on instead of, sometimes we can, being with someone, yes, can make us feel better. Sometimes we can process things with them, but sometimes when we're just left alone with
Mhm.
our own thoughts, then it's like, oh, you've really gotta go a little deeper and figure out how do I feel about all of this? Where do I want to go? What do I need?
Mhm.
Was
Yeah, I mean,
that?
I'm going to say it was completely helpful. It was helpful mostly for me because I was like journaling every day and going into my thoughts every day, but mostly for me, it really gave me clarity to see both sides of this caregiving situation. And I
Mm-hmm.
and how like I've been in those situations where I'm like, okay, no, I'm going to go take a deep breath of air and then I get the pushback but I don't think I've been in that place where I've been like, well, wait a minute. Like I was surprised with myself at how I was like, hold on. I coach on boundaries and then there's a
Mm-hmm.
man saying boundaries and I'm like and it was really helpful for me one to see that my life coaching tools held up that I sort of felt that initial like oh, and then I'm like, no, what I'm feeling is disappointment. That's a total clean pain feeling to feel. I would have been getting in a dirty pain if I'm like, he should have been, that sort of
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And it
Mm-hmm.
was really helpful. I mean, I think it strengthened our relationship, frankly, that it was like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
so glad to see that I didn't have someone. I guess this is another thing to note that I am incredibly grateful that I didn't have someone caring for me and ignoring all of his or her basic human needs because they thought that I couldn't handle it. And then they become this resentful mess. And then in 2 weeks' time, he's like, yeah, well, when I didn't do anything for, whatever, work when you
Right.
were at the hospital, that's, it's like, no, that's so nice to not
Mm-hmm.
get that boomerang of like smack.
Right.
So
Mm-hmm.
in all ways, it is helpful. It does encourage that relationship to grow. Now, the other person might not be doing their own thought work, so that's fine, but we have to, that's why we surround ourselves with the group where it's like, yeah, you're not doing something wrong. And they might be a little whiny, and that's okay. Like, let's
Mm-hmm.
stop putting everyone else's feelings above your feelings. Let's
Absolutely.
let's let people, I mean, the Mel Robbins, let them have their
Yes.
feelings and let you do what
Mm-hmm.
serves you, and everyone's going to come out ahead.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you try it, you realize that, wow, it's not really as uncomfortable as it seems like it's going to be. And
Hmm.
it feels good. It feels good to know that you're taking care of yourself. It feels good to know that you can say no, that somebody can be disappointed and you can both live through it.
Hmm.
And yeah,
Well,
and
and when it
it's so
does feel
important.
uncomfortable, because I was like, no, like I think sometimes it really does still feel like
Yes.
like my if people are watching the video, like my like chest feels like so uncomfortable when I am speaking up for myself or when I am saying like I need to take a breath of fresh air or that's not
Hmm.
going to work for me or something. And knowing that, between the like let them and the let me is we can care for ourselves. We are no longer those little children around our mothers when we're, 8 in our house. We're our age, we are full grown adults and we can do the work that we can't talk about, on a podcast episode, or we can't do justice to on a podcast
Hmm.
episode, but do the work of signaling safety to our body and being that, supporter of ourselves that we were not equipped to be when we were 8. So I think that's super important that even if it does feel hard, still do it. Because
Hmm.
as you said, like the ramifications of this long term in our health and caregivers' health and caregivers' relationships are really quite significant. But I think that's a great place to finish up. And I guess,
Yes.
is there anything that you feel that we've left unsaid that you'd like to tell that listener out there? Um,
I think really just that you're worth it. You're worth taking that time for yourself, whatever that looks like for you. You're worth exploring what that looks like for you,
mm,
and recognizing that, it's not being selfish to have needs. You're human. You're not a robot,
mm,
and caregiving is hard work in every way, hard work. And especially when there's lots of feelings involved, when it's somebody that you're close to. And
mm.
so, just figuring out ways to make that happen and fit into your life, is such an
Work worth
important thing to
doing.
consider.
Yeah, it's mandatory. I mean,
Absolutely.
you're not here to be a little robot for someone else's life. Like you are here for a reason. So I love that. Thank you so much for coming on, Jenny. I
Well,
will
you're
put
so
your
welcome.
contact information, but just on the audio, do you want to direct listeners to where they can get some more of this warm-hearted support from wonderful you?
Yes. Yeah. So, again, like you said, we didn't have time to go into a whole lot of things, but I do have a book called Self-Care Isn't Selfish, The Compassionate
So
Nurse's
perfect.
Step-by-Step Guide to Personalized Self-Care. And it goes into these things some more, but at the same time, it's a really short read because people who need to read it aren't
Yeah,
going to spend a lot of time reading it. So
perfect.
it is
Bedside.
available
Right.
on, yeah, it is available on Amazon and, in Audible and Kindle and paperback and all that. But your listeners can also just go to my website, jennylytle.com, JENNYLYTLE.com, and just get a free digital copy of the book as well.
Mm.
So,
And
and
it's
there's
so
also other
generous of you. I
resources
mean, you
there.
really are like, people, I want to help you. So I
Yes,
see that, and
absolutely.
that's wonderful. And I will put the links, listeners listening, just scroll down. Those links will be there for you. And go give Jenny some love because I'm very grateful that you took your time today to help us all. This is important work and important work to care for the caregiver and all of us running out there
Well,
taking care of everyone else. So thank you
yes.
for
Well,
taking
thank you
care of
so much,
us.
Susie. I
Yeah,
really appreciate the opportunity.
you. Wonderful.